Welcome, finally, to the launch version of Battlefield 5. Today I've got some footage of the Devastation map, one of the ones that we've seen the least gameplay from, and the weapon of choice is, of course, the MG42. Now, all of this footage was captured at a recent recording event in Stockholm. DICE and EA invited me and about 120 other people to a venue just outside the city, and everyone there spent 2 full days, playing various modes, maps, getting hands-on with all the weapons and vehicles, and in general, we got to experience the game for an extended period of time. Now, I spoke to a lot of people whilst I was there, all the people playing, trying to get a general feel for their opinion on the game, and most people reacted positively to what DICE had produced, and the jump forward from the open beta build of Battlefield 5 is extremely noticeable. Lots of changes and tweaks based on the feedback that was given during that open beta week. There are a few issues left as well. In this video today, I want to cover off my experience, including both the positives and the negatives of my time that I spent with the game. First of all, let's start off with something positive. The maps that DICE has built for the launch of Battlefield 5, I think, are very good. There's plenty on offer for all different types of players, so whether you prefer infantry gameplay, rolling around in tanks on the ground, or happen to be a keen pilot, then there's lots for you to do in these 8 maps. Maps like Hamada and Twisted Steel, these are the large ones. They combine all the different types of gameplay. And then you've got maps like Devastation, Rotterdam, and Fjell 652. They focus the gameplay towards something in particular. The Panzerstorm map, which is coming in December, that's not a launch map. We did get to play that a little bit, but at the moment I'm not allowed to show you gameplay of it. But let's just say it's heavily focused on ground vehicle combat. And when I say heavily focused, I mean heavily focused. Imagine Armoured Shield from the Battlefield 3 days, and you're sort of on the right path there. Of all of the maps, I'd say that Arras and Devastation are my favourites because they cater to my playstyle, being an infantry soldier. Arras supports infantry, ground vehicle and aerial gameplay, but it focuses the combat down onto a smaller area, and Devastation supports infantry and ground vehicle combat, although it leans more towards infantry play than anything else. This map, in my opinion, is extremely well built. Plenty of cover, opportunities for ambush, lots of obscured pathways, and then it all centres around this half-ruined cathedral, which makes for an excellent infantry-only arena. There's lots of entrances and exits, which means most likely that the cathedral will change hands quite a lot during a match, and that for me is a big improvement over the last cathedral that we saw in a Battlefield game, Tsaritsyn in Battlefield 1's Russian DLC. That had nowhere near enough entrances and could be easily locked down. Now, moving over to Arras, some flags set around the outside of the central village and the church. Those are where ground vehicles and planes can wage war, and infantry will find their home amongst all the houses and buildings in the centre. Both of these maps have lots of fortification opportunities, and they're set up in such a way that they become strategic for you to place, and they create this kind of valuable cover and certain pressure points to take on enemy players. I've got to say, the launch set of maps is a really good set, and I think most players will have something to like here when they launch the game. Next, I want to give you an update on the readability, the UI, and the HUD of Battlefield 5. We've seen quite a few tweaks since the open beta, and these were immediately noticeable in the build that I got to play. First of all, the UI movement toggle, that's been added. That allows you to enable or disable the motion of the UI moving with your soldiers' actions. It's much more accentuated here in Battlefield 5. I'm not a huge fan of the UI moving too much, so I can now turn that off. So if that was a problem for you in the open beta, you can now change that. A big change is the adaptive shadow system. This has been implemented to help the HUD readability. Essentially, DICE has created a shadowing effect under HUD elements that changes depending on the background that it sits on top of. So in brighter areas, you're now going to notice the HUD has a shadow, so it remains visible and you can actually read it. In darker areas, the shadow fades and then it sits flush with the background, and that is a great improvement, and I'm really glad that DICE got that in. The revive icons are extremely easy to see now, which is great, and their behaviour changes. That meant I knew who I needed to revive and who I didn't. Big flashing revive icons means a player is holding on, whereas smaller ones, or ones with their timer moving very fast on them, shows a player's not doing anything or is skipping the revive. That made it really easy to prioritise revives during tense moments. And lastly, I want to touch on the overall visibility of Battlefield 5, being able to see soldiers separate from the background. That's changed a lot, and I didn't really have any problems at all picking out players in backgrounds. The place I'd say I only had problems was on Devastation. Sometimes a player would be hiding in a dark corner, and I found it a little bit difficult to see them, but overall, the map is quite dark, so perhaps that's just leaning into the gameplay that's available on the map. I'm sure once after a few rounds, and I've got used to the pathing and the way you move around the map, I'll be checking different corners because I know people are going to be hiding there, but during the reveal event, it was a little bit difficult to see those people. That's two positive things, so let's move on to something negative. The front-end menu system, including the armory and the company, which is where you're going to be spending a lot of time customizing your soldiers, your weapons and vehicles, I think that needs quite a bit of work. There's a lot of clicking and burying into menus in order to make some rather simple changes, in my opinion. Options like change appearance of your soldier and change character are in separate menus, but they kind of fall under the same category. These two options allow you to change the clothing of your soldier, that's change appearance, and then the facial structure and gender of your soldier, that's under change character. But they're not contained within the same menu, which is a little bit annoying. And then you've got separate loadouts for both of your factions as well, which is a good thing overall because your Axis and Allied soldiers are going to look very, very different. It's not like that you can apply Allied clothing to an Axis soldier. Things are very separate here. But that's a lot of clicking because you've got to do all of your Axis soldiers and all of your Allied soldiers. Lots of clicking, lots of moving in and out of menus to select and lock in what you want. Then, there's no double click to apply within the menu system either. Instead, you have to click equip on things to lock them in, and sometimes you forget to do that and the change then isn't applied, which is frustrating. Within the weapon skin menu, goodness me, each part of the weapon has its own drop-down menu, so you can apply whatever skin you want to different parts of the weapon. That's really good for customization, but each drop-down is then not ordered in the same order as the previous one, with some skins being in completely different positions. And there's not an apply full skin button either if you own all parts of a weapon skin for a weapon. That means you have no choice but to open up each part, apply a skin, close the part, open the next one, and so on. And honestly, it does become quite tedious after a while. I'm not disputing the level of control that you have over your soldiers, your weapons and vehicles, far from it. I think it's a monumental step forwards from the level of control that you had in previous games, but it's the way that you have to spend far too long doing it all to get the results that you want. That's what I take issue with. Parts of the armory where you collect your new equipment once you've unlocked it, and your company, I think they could be almost combined together. And the entire user experience of customizing your equipment, whilst it is extremely rich and deep with content, is also extremely laborious, and I think it needs to be thought through again. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw DICE make tweaks to all of this menu system after the launch. At the moment, it's just a little bit all over the place, and it needs to be tightened up. Back on to something positive now, let's talk about the gunplay. Wow, oh wow, has DICE done a good job here. Florian has worked some magic, and with all of the weapons available, it becomes so much clearer how games are going to play out, with lots of different weapons being on the map at any one time. Weapons feel almost connected to your hand for the first few bullets that you fire. That's the predictable part of the recoil pattern, and then it moves into mastering the more erratic parts of that pattern. It feels challenging, but at the same time, I'd say it feels extremely rewarding. It's as close to the weapon balancing and gunplay in Battlefield 3 than any title that precedes it, and it's not the assault rifle winfest that Battlefield 4 was either. I will say that the fully automatic assault rifles in Battlefield 5, like the Sturmgewehr 1.5 and the STG-44, are still very good at range, which could be an issue for DICE further down the line, but the SMGs of the medic class are deadly at close range, and they don't suffer the same way that they did in the open beta, where the STG just dominated every range every time. Things felt clean, they felt really crisp, and there weren't many scenarios where I thought I was being killed unfairly. That said, I think the time to death, or TTD as you might see it called, is still very fast, and it didn't quite match the time to kill experience. Being on the receiving end felt sometimes like I was left with little time to react, but that could be accentuated by the brand new health system, not automatically regenning all the way back up to 100. Now, once the game goes live, I think DICE will have much more data to read from, and again, like the front-end menu system, I wouldn't be surprised to see DICE make some weapon balance changes soon after launch. Overall, though, things felt really good when it came to gunplay. All in all, based on my experience at the launch event, which was a closed environment that is worth remembering, I'm now very excited for Battlefield 5. For a release product and everything that's in it, it's almost perfect. You could argue there should be more in it, and some of the stuff that's in the Tides of War that should have been in the launch, then yes, you can make that argument, and I wouldn't disagree with you. There are some things I think should be in the launch product, but there are still a few rough edges, and these are just small points that I picked out whilst I was playing that I wanted to let you guys know about. I did notice a few times where I couldn't buddy revive any squad mates in my squad at all for no obvious reason. I'd go up to the player and try and buddy revive them by hitting the interact button, and things just wouldn't work. The only way to solve it was dying and respawning, which was a bit weird, but there you go. It's probably a bug that will get rooted out at some point after launch. Sometimes the HUD, when going to perform a revive, would be slowly sliding away from the soldier on the ground, even though the soldier wasn't moving, and then to revive them you'd have to go to the current HUD position and interact with it, which would then trigger the revive animation and you sort of fly back to where the soldier was a little bit. Again, it's a weird one, it wasn't game breaking, something I noticed, just a little bit annoying. I'm also not a huge fan of calling in vehicles like the Sturmtiger and the Churchill Crocodile with the reinforcement system, and then the only way to get into them is to die, go back to the deploy screen and spawn back into it. That's not a good implementation, and sometimes you, the squad leader, might have called it in and you wanted to be the driver, but if one of your squad mates dies before you do, they can go back to the deploy screen and take the vehicle from you. I just don't think that's a good implementation. I think DICE needs to find a much better solution to that. And I still don't really like the squad deploy feature. It's an extra layer added to the death loop that to me doesn't really do anything majorly different to the standard deploy screen. DICE has done a good job at speeding up the entire death loop, it's now much better, but still I see it as almost a needless addition. It doesn't solve a problem because there wasn't a problem to solve in the first place, so I'd like to see an option to remove it, or in general DICE just completely remove it from the game. I really do see it as something needless added to Battlefield 5. So, there you go, Battlefield 5 and my opinions on it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go off and get myself prepared for the launch of this game. I hope you've enjoyed the video today, thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. I'll pin some, heart some, and reply to some down in the comments later on today. Let me know some of your opinions about what you've seen. Make sure you subscribe to the channel with notifications switched on, that way you won't miss any of my future Battlefield 5 content, and because we're now pretty much at the launch for Origin Access subscribers, I'm going to be making videos every single day. And again, just a big thanks for watching and all of your support throughout this Battlefield 5 build-up. I know it's been a difficult ride for everybody, it's not quite gone the way that we thought it would, but we're now at the launch, and I think we can focus on the game moving forwards. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.